with Randi Weingarten. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers. And Randi, it's great to have you on the program. You know, many schools are back in session. They have resumed classes over the last couple of weeks, whether that be virtually or a hybrid model or in-person classes. But from a teacher's perspective, how has it been going so far?
So let me just start by saying there's no good choices in the middle of a pandemic. And thankfully, we're starting to see a little bit of a lull, or we did in the last couple of weeks, although the numbers are starting to go up again. And the most important lesson to know is that we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and mask and physical distancing are an absolute must. So what's happened is that the places that had the most hotspots still right now are still on remote, thinking about a gradual return to hybrid probably in October. And that the other places in the country, basically suburban, so 70 of the 100 largest school districts are still exclusively on remote. New York City is going to do a very big experiment this week. It started with special needs kids last week. New York City, Boston are doing this kind of gradual going to a hybrid situation. What we're seeing is that there's lots of issues in terms of remote education. There's lots of issues with kids not having access to technology. There's some stupidity that's going on in terms of how teachers are being used in a hybrid situation. The best hybrids are when the teacher in school is teaching in school and the teacher who's teaching remote is teaching remote, not to have one teacher trying to look at a screen and look at a class at the same time. I don't care if the class has 4 kids or 6 kids, that's kind of undoable. So we're seeing some problems, but this is the best news. I like ending with the best news. The best news is that I think because of what happened in Georgia, plus the advocacy we and others have done over and over and over, very few kids and teachers have gotten sick, even in the beginning of this. We've had 6 teachers die since the beginning of school starting. We don't know if they got it in school or they because of community spread. But what, unlike in colleges, K through 12, we're not seeing the level of positivity cases. So that's why I'm going to end where I started. Mask and physical distancing really, really work, as are the other things that the CDC required. And we need to be vigilant on all of those things. Last thing I'll say is we really need a federal response, and we really need the federal government to be counting this. All of this is a patchwork, and it would still be a lot better if we had actually some guidance and a whole lot of resources. People have front-loaded the resources. They don't have the money for PPE. They don't have the money to continue the cleaning, to do the retrofits on ventilation. And as we get closer and closer and closer to winter and with flu season, we really need the resources to actually stand up the well-being supports, to stand up the instructional supports, and to maintain the safety supports.
Randi, there's a lot to unpack there from a number of points that you brought up, but let me just start with what you ended with, and that's the fact that we know what we need to do in order to reopen schools and how to do it safely. We need testing, like you said, PPE equipment, yet we see it all over. I mean, it's all over social media. It's all over whoever you talk to, that teachers don't have the equipment that they need. It requires money. It requires trust from the students, from the parents, and also really from your peers, from the administrators. So what do you need in terms of the role of the federal government and more funding? What exactly do you need right now? What are you looking for?
So, and I don't mean to be political here, but you clearly need a new president who actually thinks that this is important. Because the fact that we've had to fight like hell to even get what we've gotten thus far in terms of making sure that the CDC didn't water down the in-school protections. And that's what the GAO said too. The GAO actually criticized DeVos mightily because the only guidance that she put out here was that the standardized tests would continue when we do need testing, but we need actually COVID testing, and we need these resources. So in a nutshell, what we need is You need the resources to state and local governments and schools because they pay for about 40% of schools spending. So a federal stimulus that's going to help state and localities will help schools make sure that we don't have huge layoffs of educators. That's number one. Number two, there's all of these safety things that have to be bought. It's PPE, it's ventilation supports like the MERV 13 filters. It's making sure that windows open. It's making sure you have cleaning supplies, that you have the signs that say, go this way or go this way, so that you're not having kids cluster in a hallway. But then there's also the kind of staff support. You really have to have a nurse in every school, and that costs money, and there's a shortage of school nurses. Also, you have to have guidance and other kind of support personnel because kids have gone through a lot. And the last piece I would say is we need the stuff, the equity stuff, the equipment and the connectivity. 16 million kids still don't have that connectivity. And we need to make sure that feeding is done. We finally in what they just agreed to, Pelosi and Mnuchin, they have extended the programs for feeding kids because they were all going to expire at the end of September. So when you aggregate all of that in terms of every single school system through America, you start talking about numbers in the billions. Like our number was just for the safety supports, about 116 billion. When you put the layoff issues and the safety supports together, you get to about 200 billion.
Hey, Randi, it sounds almost unsurmountable when you go over all of the issues. I have friends with kids in school districts across the country, and every night it's almost a competition of like, who has it worse? Is it the people that got to start or the people that didn't get to start? As you said, it's a patchwork. I just want to know about New York City because it's the biggest. We're here. We're trying to figure it out. Do you think it's even worth New York trying to open, or would it be better just to have the clarity and say, you guys, we thought about it. We can't do it. Let's just try and be virtual the whole year?
I think it's better to try. And remember, this is a school teacher who is saying that we have to have safety first, but we know that in-person learning is really important. We know it's important. We also know that childcare is really important. And that, for so many years, schooling did double duty. It did double duty as childcare and as schooling. But the reason I say that is because, and it's really hard, and I've been, I've been very involved and engaged, obviously, in terms of what's going on in terms of New York City. And the testing is important, and all the safety protocols are important. But I have seen my members in these District 75 schools right now, in the last few days, feeling the sense of a connection to their students and seeing parents being so relieved that we're trying. And even in my own apartment building, I have friends that have kids who are pre-K, and I saw them smile for the first time in months because their child was in that, was in fellowship with other kids. Yes, it's hard. Yes, kids don't keep their masks on. We're starting to think about what kind of face shields we should have. Yes, there's going to be situations where schools are going to have to close because there's COVID positive rates. But in a situation where if we're mindful of the community spread, because we got to be sacrosanct about that, we got to be sacrosanct about safety. But if we can stand it up, we need to create in-person learning because that will help eradicate the social isolation that kids are feeling right now.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.